Welcome to Real Life Mentoring, where we explore real life issues to help you make an authentic difference in the world.
Hi everyone, Chris and Christina here again. We're continuing this episode on how we experience God in our health.
Yeah.
And so, Christina, you've interviewed me recently about an experience I had that was caused a lot of fear, uncertainty.
Trauma. Yeah.
So I want to talk to you about, when I say Branson, Missouri, what comes to your mind, because I know what comes to my mind.
Yeah, I want to head for the hills. I don't ever want to go. And we love Branson. We just have had horrible experiences in relation to health.
Truly, and it's not a criticism.
Right.
Our experiences are just that. They're our experiences.
Right.
So we were in Branson with your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Two of our daughters were with us.
2 years ago.
Not even 2 years ago at this point.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's that recent. That trauma's still strong. Don't.
I blocked it out.
Yeah, you blocked it out. So we go, and we were going to say 2 nights, and we did. But within a few hours of being in Branson, it's hot, it's humid. I mean, it is so extremely hot. You feel weak anyway. And for different reasons, not enough water in you, different things like that. We're sitting at this outside restaurant, and you're sitting across from me at the table. Our whole family's around it.
Yep.
And you said, I'm not feeling very well. And I said, well, drink some more water. And but I could tell the look on your face. Something wasn't quite right. But you've battled
anemia.
Well, yes, that before, but migraines before. I thought maybe it's some of that.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, you put your hand up to brace your head.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. And then you look and your eyes got kind of glassy. And next thing I know, your head hits the table. You were out. And my heart, almost stopped seeing that. Our girls, teenagers, early 20s and a teenager, that I'll say that freaked them out.
Sure.
Your dad and mom, my sister and brother-in-law were with us. We're like, oh my goodness. And so, because you may not remember, you were out.
Yeah.
So we all run over there. We try to get water on your face, put a cool wrap around your neck. We're slapping you in the face, speaking to you very loudly, and no response. You're like a rag doll. I mean, the fear that was going through my mind, and I was also not only thinking about you, but our girls, and then your dad and mom, and what are they thinking? And so, fortunately, there was a guy who's a nurse who was sitting a table or two away, and he jumped up and came over, and he had us lean you back in your chair, and I forget all that he was doing, but I forget, he was able to assess it that he didn't think it was your heart. But obviously there was a problem. 911 was called. They get there. They transport you into the hospital.
And that's where I can pick up the story.
That's where you take it from there.
That's just where I remember. So yeah, it was hot, and we had sat down, and I was drinking water, and I had been drinking water, but yeah. So I don't remember anything other than telling you I do not feel good. And the next thing I know, I remember whoever that man was, the nurse, saying my name, and I'm trying to respond, but I just can't. And so what was happening, I don't remember anything. I just remember kind of coming to and realizing that I cannot move my body and I cannot talk. And I hear this man, but I can't respond to him. And I start to freak out, and I'm like, God, am I dying? Backstory, my mom had a stroke at 38, ended up dying at 48. I'm thinking, oh, great. What is happening? Am I having a stroke? And instantly in my spirit, I hear the Holy Spirit say, no, you're not dying. That's all I needed to know. But it was still scary. It's like, okay, if I'm not dying, God, if this is a stroke, I'm just all this internal dialogue, and I cannot speak. So I remember being kind of fully coming to when they're wheeling me to the ambulance, and it was just the strangest feeling. I couldn't talk, but I knew it was important to communicate to you, to just pray, get people praying. Our only defense is God. We need God to intervene.
let me interject something. It's interesting. When health is good, finances are good, there's either no family drama or less family drama, things like that, job's going well, we can convince ourselves that life is about us.
Yeah.
We're independent and we're good to go. And then these things get hindered.
Yeah.
A health scare like this, it is humbling. And we go, oh, God, I need you.
Well, let's paint the full picture. It was scary, but it was bad as well.
We thought you were had a stroke.
Right. I couldn't talk. And then I remember when I was able to say words, I just kept looking at you like, pray, pray. That's all I could say.
You were like, I can't describe it. You could not get more than one or two words out, and it was so twisted, the sounds of your words.
Yeah.
And just the look on your face. I mean, it caused great fear deep within me, and yet I was also trusting God in the middle of it.
So they take me by ambulance to the Branson hospital. And just on a side note, I'm not going to be hateful or ugly. Don't ever go to the Branson ER. Go to Springfield. We had a wretched experience.
Well, that could have changed.
Yeah.
That could have changed by now. Hopefully our experience and some others that have, addressed it, maybe it's changed.
So I came in with stroke-like symptoms, was wheeled into this holding area where you then received me. Had you not been there, I guess I would have just sat there.
You would have. You would have been in the waiting room. The guy was in a wheelchair that had like a neck area to hold your head up because she couldn't even hold her head up.
Yeah.
And so I walked in, went to the desk. My wife was brought in. Next thing I know, right next to the desk were these metal doors that opened up, and they push you out, and they leave you there with me.
Yeah.
You would have been there sitting by yourself had I not gotten there.
It was so bad that I was trying to communicate to you that I was having even difficulty breathing, and nothing was happening. There was no immediacy. They didn't bring me back. Finally, you were like, listen, my wife, and they brought me back for an EKG. But in the meantime, this is where we get to brag on God. The word went out to people in our faith community to pray. And I honestly believe that God honored the prayers of those people, because within about 3 hours, it was like somebody turned a light switch on. I was able to sit up on my own. I think at one point I got out of I was so tired. I got out of the wheelchair and laid down on this bench. My speech came to. It was slower, but I was able to talk. And finally, after about 3 hours, I was like, Chris, let's get out of here. And later on, a friend of mine said, that's amazing that not even the medical community can get credit for healing you. God miraculously healed you.
Truly, because when we arrived, we thought you had had a stroke, and it did not look good. And for whatever reason, we could not get medical attention.
No.
You had been checked in technically, but could not get medical help there within. And I kept asking, and it's interesting as well, there were several people in the emergency room, waiting room, patients needing to be seen.
It's kind of funny,
and family
actually.
members.
There was a young man, God bless him, and I'm just, trusting our prayers for him have been answered. But he was a young man who was obviously a meth addict who had come into the ER.
Because he had actually said that. We heard him say, I'm
Right.
addicted to drugs.
Right. And he said, I've heard that if I check myself in at the ER, I can get some help with my addiction. He was out of it, but he came up to me saying, ma'am, are you okay? That's how bad it was.
Yeah, he recognized that something's not right with this lady.
And then for 3 hours later, the only explanation of what happened is that we were recipients of a grand miracle that was straight from the hands of God.
And because of my faith and ongoing relationship with God, I tend to look at situations and go, God, I know you're here. I know you're at work here. What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
What do you not want me to do? And there were several people, other patients, and I would look at them, and I knew God said, okay, pray for them.
Yeah.
Because they're probably fearful too.
Well, again, this is just God, because I remember still kind of being out of it. And there was this one older woman who was just, remember,
Oh,
it was a little bit humorous, but she kept dry heaving. Okay. How disgusting. And
But she couldn't help it.
she couldn't help it. But I remember thinking to myself, is this how I go? I die in an ER with the sound of dry heaving in the background. Not really, because the Lord already promised me I wasn't dying. And I kept trying to tell you, pray for her.
Pray for her. Well, but I'm there with you, Christina.
Yeah.
And I'm holding your hand, trying to be a support to you. And in the background, you hear this woman retching. I mean, guys, it was so intense. And it's not as bad as it used to be, but I can have a weak stomach. And I start to...
Oh, yeah, make it all about you.
Well, truly. I thought I was going to throw up hearing that. And then my wife, who is struggling, go pray for that lady. And so I went over there, and she's retching, and I said, my wife and I want to pray for you. I'm going to be praying for you.
Who's your wife? That person over there in the fetal position.
Can't talk. Anyway, and I guess between retches, she said thank you. And so sweet. And then later, I think she came over and said, we're praying for you too.
Yeah.
It's like we were such a support system for one another. It was, I tell you that, God is at work in the middle of people's lives.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
I want to open my eyes up. I want to open my heart up and say, God, I'm in a tough situation right now. What are you doing?
Right.
Don't let me overlook what my purpose is in this situation. So anything else on that?
Well, you may not be in Branson having stroke-like symptoms waiting in an ER, but maybe you're facing just as traumatic of an emotional crisis, relational crisis, whatever. The message here is, yes, God is still moving and acting on our behalf when we cry out to him. For me, it was my health. For you, it could be any other numbers of things. And we just want to encourage you that God cares. He's there. He's willing and eager. I believe he's eager to step in and do dramatic things. So we know he sees us.
And we know we experienced a miracle with your health that night, Christina.
Yeah,
we truly did.
We truly did.
But we also walked away, at least the girls and I did, maybe you did as well, with some residue, some trauma that,
yeah.
And you go, God, thank you for being our Father, for taking care of her. I mean, people die every day, and it's part of our journey, but that was a life-changing moment for our family.
Point of today, God is always working on our behalf. Today, it just happened to be another story about how we saw God encounter us in our health. So, as always, we are so grateful that you've chosen to listen. You've got a lot of choices out there. So, if you enjoyed today or any other podcast that you happen to listen to that we've produced, leave us a review, download, subscribe. If you feel compelled to give financially to the production of this podcast, we would appreciate that as well. Just go to fearandhypementoring.org. So, thank you once again.